Hello, thank you for stopping by. So, in my last video, I spoke about the second big complication that I suffered following surgery for endometriosis. And in my mind, as I was trying to prepare the content for this video, I was trying to address my mind to bringing things to a conclusion because I had thought that was the final episode in this journey, and it was then just a case of going on to how I have been living with endometriosis post surgery and getting on with life. Lo and behold, it turns out I forgot yet another episode. In fact, I suffered a relapse. Yes, I suffered a relapse as if after going through all that drama with all the surgery and the complications following the surgery, as if all that wasn't enough, just when I was getting on with life and, obviously went back to work and, was just getting on with things, I happened to travel 3 years later, and that's when it happened. While I was abroad, I got sick as a result of endometriosis abroad. Um, it was a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine who's from Mauritius, and she was getting married and she invited me to the wedding. I'd never been to Mauritius before. I was really excited. There'd been a fair bit going on in my personal life as well, so I'll probably go into that in the book. But for those reasons, and I just happen to love holidays anyway, I was really so super excited about traveling to Mauritius. And of course, had a great time. We were there was a group of us from the UK that travelled. I think the party was probably 15, 20 strong, if I remember rightly. And I got sick one day. And I remember the symptoms were very similar to food poisoning. So initially, I just assumed that I had eaten something. And you may not remember, but in one of my videos, I'd mentioned about the bowels not going back to normal once you've had surgery on them. And so, following that surgery, I then realized that I was very sensitive in terms of what I ate, and little things would cause me to either get constipated or I would end up suffering food poisoning, and I'll just have a really bad tummy, dicky tummy for a good few days or more. And I noticed that those upset tummies weren't like before my operation, where I'd get over it maybe in 24, 48 hours. This time, post-surgery, if I happen to have food poisoning, it'll be a lot more violent. It'll be excruciatingly painful. It'll last a lot longer. And I guess my bowel pattern had just changed. So I immediately thought that, well, it must be that I've had something dodgy. And I remember my parents being quite worried when I travelled, because of the surgery, and kept warning me and saying, make sure that, you watch what you eat and don't eat anything dodgy. Of course, when you're on holiday, all that goes out of the window. I don't think I was being particularly reckless, but just being abroad, I guess, my stomach just may not have been able to handle different type of cuisine. So, for a few days I remember feeling like I must have eaten something, but it just got worse and worse. And I remember us all going out in a group, going to the races, horse races, and just being really ill that whole time. I forced myself, tried to, pretend that I was okay. But I remember looking at some pictures. I've just got flashbacks. I remember looking at pictures of that particular day while we were at the races, and I just looked really ill, poorly, just. And it may have been the following day. I genuinely can't remember all the detail. My brain has just gone, put that to one side. But I remember being taken to a clinic and getting some scans and a test done. And it was when the scans came back, I had an x-ray done. And looking at the x-ray, they showed me where one of my ovaries had a cyst. So I had developed an ovarian cyst, which is very common with endometriosis, apparently. It's one of the symptoms that a lot of women can present with. So, of course, you can imagine there I was in a foreign country dealing with this major news. I'm sick. I don't have my creature comforts around me. I wasn't around my family, my friends. I mean, I had my friends there with me, but in terms of things that you're familiar with when you're back home in your normal domain, I didn't have my doctor to consult or get advice from. Ovarian cyst, what did that mean? Was I going to lose one of my cysts, one of my ovaries? Um, surgery. Surgery. Now, that was the major thing that was really, truly traumatizing me, especially being away um, from all things familiar, not being able to get advice from my doctor, and just not knowing what this meant, what the prognosis was. It was a worrying time. It was a really worrying time. So physically, I was really poorly. Mentally and emotionally, it was really draining. Um, my friends were great. I mean, they looked after me, and from what I remember, there were times when I couldn't partake in certain activities because between getting those results and my departure date, I think there was a few days. I honestly can't remember how many days. And activities were going on, but I just couldn't partake. I was just in my hotel room, sick, feeling sorry for myself, hot water bottles and painkillers, that kind of thing. And I also remember the flight back home being absolutely horrendous. I mean, it's not the best of environments to be ill. I didn't have the luxury of being able to travel first class. But to be honest, even with, extra legroom, when you're in an aeroplane, it really is the last place that you want to be ill. And I think I was lucky. There were two spare seats right at the back, so the stewards could see how poorly I was, and I was able to just, go to the back and just sort of lie across, huddled under a blanket. But it was arduous. It was awful. I was not well. I was not in a good place. I honestly can't remember how I made my way home from the airport. I think my parents must have picked me up, or I probably got a cab. It's really funny. It's amazing how your brain can just take painful things out and just dump. But I do remember being extremely anxious about, being able to see my doctor as soon as possible. So the earliest, um, as soon as it was, convenient, I was able to see my gynecologist to get a lowdown. And I remember traveling with the scan results and, giving them to him. And I think I had some more scans done just to, corroborate what had been diagnosed in Mauritius. And indeed, it was an ovarian scan. And no, I couldn't avoid surgery. And yes, I underwent major surgery again. And you can imagine mentally and psychologically and emotionally, it would have been a really, really trying time for me because my main thing was, my goodness, I remember how much drama I endured after the last time I was in hospital having an operation, and just the thought of one being cut open again and them going in there and tinkering and pulling things out and cutting things and all that stuff, and then two, if things didn't go according to plan and if I suffered another complication, then what would that mean? How would that look? So yeah, that was a bit worrying, but thank God it all went according to plan. um, the operation was fine. It was a success. They were able to save the ovary. I didn't lose it, and I was able to come back home and recuperate. I think I was probably off for 2 3 months. Again, it's my memory is a bit sketchy, but that was it. That was it, and I'm pleased to report that since then I have been good. And I remember making a promise to myself and saying that I was not ever going to have another operation again. I was not going to darken my shadow ever again in a hospital, at least not involuntarily, falling ill and needing to go in to get fixed. If it does so happen that I need to go back into hospital, let it be of my own free will, let it be of my own volition. But I just remember making that pact with myself that it wasn't going to happen. And, you know, the power of the mind. Yes, we are good. That was 13 years ago, and so it shall remain. And so since then, it's just been living with the illness, I guess, and managing it the best way I can. And so I was very fortunate to have discovered a lady who does natural remedies, plants and flower remedies. And this came at a rather opportune time because I remember when my periods came back to normal, because after you've had major surgery, your periods stop effectively because your body just goes into pause mode. I guess it's like shock in a way. It doesn't know what's going on when a knife, suddenly appears, cuts you open and starts pulling things around. Your periods actually stop. I really learned quite a lot about the human body. But yes, when the periods came back, naively at the time, I didn't know then what I know now. The periods came back with a vengeance, and this was a complete and utter shock to me. In fact, I was quite traumatized by that. And I remember going back to my consultant and, asking him what on earth is going on. I've just endured all that, drama. What is going on? How is it that I'm still in pain? And he just very calmly, said to me, yes, well, there's no cure for endometriosis. So you will have pain every month, every time you have your period. And you just have to manage the pain with painkillers. And I remember thinking to myself, hell no, that is not my lot. No, no. And so that started my quest for alternatives, preferably natural alternatives. And yes, by pure serendipity, I came across somebody who introduced me to somebody. And an amazing lady walked into my life who does flowers and herbs, 100% natural. And it's something that she'd done for decades. So it was, very well versed and very well experienced. And what she does is she'll do a full consultation. She wants to know about all of you holistically, so she can treat not just that local condition, if you like, but your whole being. She'll like to know, what's gone on in your life, and where you're currently at, psychologically, mentally, emotionally. So when she's doing something bespoke for you, she'll prepare some drops from these plants and these flowers. It's something that will take into account your whole being. And again, I'm pleased to report, ladies and gentlemen, that it has worked wonders. It has been amazing for me in that I have been able to stay on top of the symptoms. So all that pain and all the complications that I suffered post-surgery, because the surgery resulted in certain pain that I never had before, backache, for instance, that plagued me for years after the surgery. So in the next video, I'll go into a little bit more detail about how I have managed with those natural remedies. And I'm also planning to do some collaboration type videos where I'll be speaking to other individuals who can, most likely professionals, who can talk a bit more on that subject. So in the meantime, stay strong, don't lose the faith, hang in there. There is always, always light at the end of the tunnel. If you like this video, like it, share, subscribe, so when I do my next video, you will automatically get notified. In the meantime, stay blessed. God bless.